Question number 25. So question number 25, we want you to solve the quadratic by factoring, okay? So when a question tells you that it wants you to solve by factoring, it essentially wants you to convert the equation that you're given, which is a quadratic, into factored form, which is two pairs of parentheses. But before I can do that, guys, I need to make sure that I have a quadratic, okay? So I need to make sure that everything is on the same side. So when I look at my first example, is everything on the same side, guys? No. So I need to move this negative 10 to the other side. To move a negative 10 to the other side, I would need to add 10, all right? Would I add 10 to 5x squared, positive x, or negative 16? Yup, the negative 16, because that's the like term. That's the other term that does not have an x or an x squared. So that cancels out. The 5x squared, I'm not adding or subtracting anything to it, so I bring it down. The positive x, I'm not adding or subtracting anything to it, so I bring it down. I am adding 10 to negative 16, and I get negative 6, okay? In front of this x is technically a what, guys? A 1, all right? So again, remember that, okay? And everything canceled out here, so I'm left with nothing, and 0 is representing nothing, okay? So now I need to factor this, okay? Anytime that a question wants you to factor and the number that's in front, the leading coefficient, is greater than 1, you need to use the method called slide and divide. All right? So again, guys, you use a method called slide and divide when the number in front of your x squared is greater than 1. All right? So if your a, all right, is greater than 1. Okay? So again, guys, that is when you use slide and divide, all right? And sometimes you even use it when it's less than 1, all right? So again, you use this whenever it is not 1, okay? So what you're going to do, guys, is that you're going to first circle your leading coefficient and slide it to the end to that constant, okay? The x squared, you're going to bring it down. The 1x, you're going to bring it down. The 5 and the negative 6, you're going to multiply to get negative 30. All right? Now we can factor this. So I'm going to put it into factor form, which is two pairs of parentheses. Good job, guys. Now I'm going to find all the numbers that multiply to give me 30, which is 1 and 30, 2 and 15. You have to be good at your multiplication table, guys. 3 and 10, 4 does not work, and then 5 and 6. Okay? So I need to figure out which pair would add and subtract to give me a 1. Yup, 5 and 6. All right? Because again, 5 and 6 has a difference of only 1. Okay? So to get my x squared, I need two sets of x's because x multiplied by x is x squared. And then I chose the 5 and the 6. Okay? So now I'm going to use my hint. When I see a negative here, what do I think about, guys? Yup, different signs. All right? So that means one of them is positive, one of them is negative. All right? So let's see which one's positive and which one's negative. If the 6 was positive and the 5 was negative, what's 6 take away 5? Positive 1. All right? And what do we want? Positive 1. So the 6 has to be positive, the 5 has to be negative. All right? Because if it was the other way, then it would be negative 1. All right? So again, if I had a positive 5 and a negative 6, 5 take away 6 is negative 1. So again, you needed a positive 6 and a negative 5. All right? So now that we've done the slide, now we're going to divide. So whenever you're going to divide, guys, you're going to divide by the same thing that I circled, the same thing that's my leading coefficient, the same thing that I slide, this positive 5. All right? And here's what you guys have to remember whenever you're solving. Okay? Because again, solve means that you're doing what? What does solve mean? Solve means that you're finding x. Okay? So again, we're not finding factored form, we're finding x. Okay? So the one that you can divide, you are going to divide it. So can I divide negative 5 by positive 5? Yes, and I get negative 1. The one that you cannot divide, all right, you're going to leave it the same. All right? Normally, we don't do that, okay? Normally, when you cannot divide it, guys, Normally, whenever you can't divide it, guys, you would take whatever this denominator is and put it in front of your x, all right? So that it will now be rewritten as 5x plus 6. However, that's if the question asks you for factored form, all right? But because the question is not asking you for factored form, it's asking you to solve, and solve means that you're finding x. You're not going to do that. You're going to just leave it the same, all right? So now we're going to go ahead and flip the signs, okay? So your x is going to be equal to the flip of a -1, which is a +1, and your x is going to be equal to the flip of 6/5, which is -6/5. And those are your two values of x, all right, that we solved for, okay? So now let's try the next one. So again, guys, for me to be able to solve this by factoring, I need to first make sure that we have the standard form for quadratic, which means that all my terms need to be on the same side. So how do I move a -6x to the other side? I would add 6x to both sides. Would I add it to 3x squared, -25x, or +3? Yep, to the -25x, because that's the like term, all right? That gets canceled. How do I move a -3 to the other side? Yep, I would add 3. Would I add it to 3x squared, -25x, or +3? Yep, to the +3, because that's the other like term. That's the other constant. The 3x squared, I'm not adding or subtracting anything to it, so I bring it down. I am adding 6x to -25x, which gives me -19x. And here I am adding 3 to 3, which gives me +6. All right? And everything cancels out here, so I'm left with nothing. 0 represents nothing. All right? Since that we saw that the number in front, the leading coefficient, is greater than 1, we're going to use what method, guys? Slide and divide. So slide and divide says that we're going to circle our leading coefficient and slide it to the end. The x squared that's right here, I'm going to bring it down. The -19x, I'm going to bring it down. The 3 and the 6, I'm going to multiply them, and I will get +18. Now I'm going to factor it. Okay, so I'm going to write factored form, which is 2 pairs of parentheses. Good job, guys. To get an x squared, I need 2 sets of x's. Good job, guys. Now I'm going to find all the numbers that multiply to give me 18. So you need to be good at your multiplication table, guys. So what are those numbers? 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. So which pair do you think would add and subtract to give me a 19? Yup, 1 and 18. Okay, so I will put my 1 and 18. Okay, and here I see a positive sign. Whenever it was a negative sign, it was different. So whenever it's positive, it means same signs, guys. So that means it will be either 2 positives or 2 negatives. Okay, so either 2 positives or 2 negatives. So let's see which one it would be. So if we had 2 positives, a +1 and a +18, +1 plus 18 is +19. But did we want a +19? No, we wanted a -19. So that means we need to have a -1 and a -18, because -1 minus 18 is -19, okay? Which is what we want. So again, both of them should be negative numbers, all right? So now that we've done the slide, you should not forget to now divide. So we're going to divide by the same thing we circled, the same thing that we slide, the same thing as my leading coefficient, which is that +3, okay? So the one that you can divide, you're going to leave it the same. The one that you can divide, you're going to divide it. The one you can't divide, you're going to leave it the same. Can I divide -1 by 3? No, so I'm going to leave it the same, okay? Can I divide -18 by 3? Yes, I can. -18 divided by 3 is -6, all right? Now I'm going to do my final step, which is what, guys? What's my final step? I'm going to now flip the signs to get my two values of x, which would be +1/3. And when I flip a -6, I get a +6. All right? And that is it. Okay? So now let's do the last question, guys. So again, we need to move everything to the same side. So to move a negative 2 to the other side, I would add 2. Would I add 2 to 4x squared or positive 1? Yep, the positive 1, because that's the like term. And this gets canceled out, okay? So now I need to move a positive 8x to the other side. How do I do that? By subtracting 8x. Alright? However, when I try to subtract it from the other side, is there a like term I can subtract it from? No. Normally, there should be an x in the middle, right, guys? And that's how it normally should look, all right? And in this case, we don't see that x in the middle. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to squeeze this negative 8x right here where it's supposed to be. I'm going to squeeze it right there in the middle. And this gets canceled, okay? So the 4x squared, I'm not adding or subtracting anything to it, so I bring it down. The negative 8x, I'm not adding or subtracting anything to it, so I'm going to bring it down. The 1, I am adding something to it, so 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, and everything canceled out here, so I'm left with 0. Now I need to factor, guys, okay? But am I just going to factor just regularly? No, I need to use slide and divide. Because again, the number in front of my x squared is greater than 1. So I take this leading coefficient and I slide it to the 3. Okay? The x squared, I'm going to bring it down. The negative 8x, I'm going to bring it down. All right? And the 4 and the positive 3, I'm going to multiply to get positive 12. Okay? So now I'm going to factor. So I'm going to write 2 pairs of parentheses. To get an x squared, I need an x times an x. So what multiplies to give you 12? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Good job, guys. But which pair do you think will add and subtract to give me an 8? Yup, the 2 and the 6. All right, because 2 and 6 plus 6 gives you 8. So I would write my 2 and my 6. So now I need to use my hints, guys. So I see a positive here, I mean. So positive means same sign. So again, a positive beside of your constant, all right? So a positive beside of your number that doesn't have an x means same signs. Whenever there's a negative there, it means different signs. So again, same signs means either 2 positives or 2 negatives, all right? So let's see which one it would be. So if I had a negative 2 and a negative 6, what's negative 2 minus 6? Negative 8. And what do we want? Negative 8. All right. So again, we need a negative 2 and a negative 6. If we had positives, that would give me positive 8. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and divide. And what am I going to divide by? Yup, the same thing I circled, that 4. Okay. So my same leading coefficient. All right. So in this case, guys, we can't divide neither of them. All right. So that means we need to simplify. So again, in this case now, we're going to simplify, all right? So when I simplify the numbers, guys, I need to figure out what numbers I can divide both 2 and 4 by. Yup, by 2. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. And this has been simplified by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 2. We just simplified it, all right? So simplify, all right? So here, the 6 and the 4 can also be simplified because both of them are also divisible by 2, okay? So when I simplify that, I'll get x negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And 4 divided by 2 is positive 2. Okay? So now we're going to do our final step, which is to flip the signs. Okay? So your x is equal to not a negative 1/2, but a positive 1/2. And x is equal to not a negative 3 over 2, but a positive 3 over 2. Alright? So again, guys, just like that. Alright? So again, if you follow all my steps, guys, you should be good.